Welcome to Google Classroom. We're going to talk about feedback, specifically rubrics and gradebook today. These aspects of Google Classroom. This session assumes that you have some working knowledge of Google Classroom. If you are brand new to Classroom, this session might be a little bit over the top in terms of what you've used thus far, but fear not, we have introductory Google Classroom sessions in our on-demand section, so you can reference those if needed. All right. So if you've not joined us before, my name is Lynn Hilt, and I'm from the Office of Professional Development and Curriculum at BCIU. And we just want to say thank you, of course, this week in particular to all of you who are spending your days learning with us and for all the work that you're doing with kids. We really appreciate it, and also principals too. So if you have any questions following this session, please reach out to my email, lynnhill@berksiu.org, or on Twitter. And this is what today's session is going to kind of review for you. First, we're going to talk about some of the feedback tools that are built right into the Classroom portal, but also in Google Docs, Google Slides. When you are providing feedback to students on the things that they're submitting, there are some go-to tools that you can use for that and strategies. We'll talk about rubrics and how you can import design rubrics with Google Classroom. And there are some specific steps you need to take to ensure that works properly. If you're not familiar with Classroom, rubrics is one of the newest features to roll out. So there are instances where things could be quirky, and so just hang in there with that as you're trying these things out for the first time. And then we'll look at the gradebook that's in Classroom and how it can be used to organize grades and things that your students have been learning. So one thing that I always like to start out with this particular session talking about is this whole idea of a grade versus feedback. And from the very beginning, when Google Classroom said, hey, we're going to include a gradebook now in our Google Classroom, I thought, well, that could be fine. But hopefully, and I have no doubt that this is the case with the teachers in our county, understanding that the grade itself is far less likely to impact learning in any way than feedback is on student work as they're working through it. So we're in this weird place right now where a lot of us are transitioning to digital environments, and what we want to do is kind of make sure that we're supporting them through the most constructive ways possible. And oftentimes a grade at the end is not the way that we're helping students reflect on their learning in any kind of way. Now, I know that we're all in certain situations with various grade level bands, and we know that there are kids who work for a grade, and that grade is very important. But as we start to think about the bigger shifts that are encompassed in this remote learning time and what opportunities we can take with us, one of those is just recognizing the importance of feedback versus recognizing that sometimes a grade is just, it's not helpful at all. So there are lots of collaborative, constructive commenting and feedback features throughout all of G Suite. But in particular, we will look at the ones in Classroom and the related assignments that will help give feedback to students. So in order to kind of build this reciprocal feedback idea where you are providing feedback to students, they can give feedback back to you. One thing you can do inside Google Classroom is to open up the stream for either commenting for students, or if you are confident in your classroom culture and your students' abilities to post constructively, you can even open up a classroom to allow students to do the posting and the commenting in that home stream. Sometimes teachers build specific Google Classrooms for student groups. So students who are working in literature circles or on a common project-based element, and that opportunity for students to do the posting as well as the commenting gives them way more ownership of that space. So that is an option that you can turn on in your Google Classroom settings. It's under General, and the same place where you get the class code in the stream is where you can change this. Now, if you're brand new to Classroom, I totally understand that you may feel that a good place to start is by only having the teachers post and comment, and that's where a lot of people do start, or they allow students commenting privileges but not necessarily posting privileges. But what it can open up are dialogues like this this very inventive one that I made up with my fake students. Just putting out open-ended things. What are some things you want to learn about? Comment below, and then if you read what your classmates write, now we can get into like a back and forth about how we can help each other in learning. Another option is to take advantage of the private comments that you can leave students in assignments. And this looks a couple of different ways. So when you have an assignment page opened up, remember in Classroom, you can see instructions, but you can also see student work. And when you click on a student in this left-hand sidebar, you have the private comment field here that you can leave them a private comment that only that student will see. So that is a place where you can go back and forth and reflect on the work that was handed in. The student sees this box in their work view, and after they add or create their work or submit the work that you pushed out as a template, they have a private comments box as well. So they can leave you a private comment and let you know how it went or any questions they still had. Now we are going to go into an actual look at grading or providing feedback inside a submitted document. But that private comments field is also on the sidebar of that space too. So there are multiple opportunities for you and for the students to engage back and forth via private comments. Again, I'm understanding that some of you are K1, 2 teachers. Your students might not be proficiently typing or articulating at this time, but it's even a space where if they're working with a peer or a parent, they can maybe add something in there if there was an issue, but it's always something that you can utilize as well. Now, here is my big note about feedback inside a document. If you're new to Classroom, what happens when a student submits their work is that ownership is turned over from the student to you. And once a student clicks submit or turn in, they have lost ownership over that document or over that set of slides or whatever it is they handed in. And for that reason, they cannot see any comments that you leave on the sidebar of their document. Even once they click submit, they have lost ownership and they can't get back in it to see any additional comments. So return the work. If you want students to see, even if they're not fully completed, there is a process for students to resubmit and continue adding submissions, especially if they're working through a longer term project. If you need them to see the most current version of what they've done, you need to return it so that they can view the comments. And that's something that has been difficult for some teachers to kind of wrap their heads around. Thank you. I have a little friend visiting. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at how that looks when a student submits their work through Classroom, and how you can then go into that sidebar and leave that leave those comments. So here's one of my classes, and here is some classwork. So in my classroom is a mess. Yours is much more organized, but I was just trying to find things that that I demo every time. So view assignment will allow me, well, right now I can see 2 of my students turned it in, and 2 still have it assigned that we're missing. But here's that interface where if I click on a student's name, I can see their doc, and at the very bottom, I see that private comment space. So I can click through my students and see it that way, or I can see it in this view with all students. Don't forget, this little folder icon will take you directly to the folder that in Google Drive that has all of their work as well. So don't forget about that direct link between Classroom and Google Drive, where every time you build a class or an assignment, it auto-populates a folder for that work, and it automatically puts all of the kids' work in that folder. You can see only one of my students actually did something because they're not real. So now here is, maybe I want to go in and I want to see what's going on here with this student's work. This is the portal where you can see along the top a disclosure triangle. You can click on there. Here's all of the students in your class, even the ones who didn't turn anything in. You can still see their names here. You can sort by first name or by last name or by status. So if you want to sort by all the missing ones first or all the late ones first or whatever it is you want to do. So that opportunity is there. Plus the arrows let you toggle through and leave feedback student by student by student. So this is meant to help streamline the feedback process where we don't want to have you have to open individual documents all of the time. So let me go to one where I didn't do anything yet, which is here. So here on the sidebar, you have the kind of the grading section, which gives you there's the file link again, you're in it. Here's where you can leave a grade. This lets you change the total points for some reason, if you would need to do that. And then there's a space again for private comments. Now I can go in and I can leave actual comments in the body of the work. And I know some of you are thinking, hey, what is that purple thing that you're doing here? What's that purple icon? I'm going to show you that, and hopefully it'll make your life a little bit easier. That's my big kind of ending thing at the end of this session. Am I able to enlarge my screen? Well, I am on the biggest display ever. I can zoom in, but I can't really make this much bigger. I'm not sure if you can full size your Zoom to help you. So my response here, I can say, it looks like you really didn't add any content. Can I help you get started? And I can leave my comment here. But remember what I said, this student is not going to be able to see this comment until I return this document. And actually, this hasn't even been turned in, so I guess they could see it at this point. So that's another option you could consider, making sure that as students are working through drafts, they can see all of your work. If they're still the owner, they'll be able to see the work. So I can leave embedded comments. I can use the private comments box. And this opportunity is sometimes missed. There's a small little box. Let me see if I can zoom in there a little bit. There's a small little box under the grading portal. It's called the comment bank. And you can build comments that you typically use very often. A lot of times they're similar for certain types of writing. So all you have to do to add a comment to this bank is click Add to Bank. And maybe a comment that you leave very often is, be sure you're including supportive details in this section. And then you can click Add. And what happens then is that it is saved to your bank. And if you would like to use it, you can say triple dots, copy to clipboard, open up the grading portal, and then you can paste it right in the comment section, or you can paste it in a comment that's on the sidebar as well. So that copy paste feature is really helpful. Okay? So you have your toggling among students here, you have your arrows, and you have your opportunities to return if it's been handed in, your grading area, and private comments, okay? Now, another thing that you can do inside a document itself, whether it's Google Slides, whether it's Google Docs, Sheets, drawings, anywhere you can leave an actual comment, you can assign a task to a user using the plus sign. If you type the plus sign and then type the user's name, you can direct a comment at that user. Now, this is an important feature in documents that have collaborative users. If there are multiple students co-writing a document or co-creating a set of slides, you might want to make sure that the student gets notified about a comment that you've left. This is also a way to trigger an email notification if your students have email turned on, and it will also flag their Google Drive and tell them you have a task waiting for you in this document. So the way that that looks, I actually did it in this slide. I clicked on wherever I was adding my comment here, but I assigned it to a specific user by typing the plus sign and then adding that user's name. And you can see that there is a check mark. That student is going to be responsible for marking it done. So I can do the same thing with another comment to show you how that happens in just in real live time. And I'll show you what the student sees. So again, click plus sign, type the student's name. The student will populate probably based on your how your G Suite is set up, and then add your comments. Click assign to the student, and they will be notified and responsible for marking it as done. Now, that student needs access to the document. So if you didn't give them that, that will prompt you to do that. So now let's switch to that student's account and see what she sees in her drive. So we'll come here. So what we see, let me go into this view. Here, there is a little number 1 behind her file name, and it says follow up, and it says to see all of your action items and suggestions, click the number icon. And when I click that, it tells me I have 1 action item waiting for me, and it takes me out to that direct comment, and now I know what I need to do. And I can I haven't opened this for a while, and I can click the check mark when I'm done and send that away. Okay, so take advantage of that if you are trying to target students for comments. Okay, bye Steve, thanks for coming. All right, here we go with some more good times. All right, don't forget you can view a student's work on one page, all the work for that student. And the way that you do that is to visit your People tab in Classroom, click on a student's name, and then you can filter on the left-hand side to show only certain types of assignments. So People, all of these students are clickable. So I can click on the student, and now since I turned Gradebook on, I have an overall grade percentage there. We'll talk about that. And then these are all of the things I can see: assigned, turned in, a grade if I gave them. And then here I can see any missing work and it will filter that out, returned with a grade, or things that are turned in. Don't also forget, you can email a list of students' work to a parent and guardian, to both students and guardians. And I put the directions for that here. You just use the triple dots and go to students, send email, and you can email a list of everything if you are looking to strengthen communication that way. So let's jump to rubrics, okay? As I said, rubrics are a newish work addition to Classroom. I put some screenshots from the Google Help Center here, and I linked to the Google Help Center, of course, because that's the best place to go for step-by-step support if you're looking at designing something in G Suite. You can create rubrics that have up to 50 criteria and up to 10 performance levels. That seems like overkill to me, but that is how they designed it. You create a rubric through an assignment. So once you build the assignment and once you give it a title, then you will see this opportunity to click the rubric button and to build your rubric. You can turn scoring on or off for rubrics, so it might just be something that students are using as a learning guide and not necessarily as a scoring item. And this diagram was really helpful for me as I was trying to build my first rubric, because the platform is specific to how it wants you to enter things. So I was able to just quickly see, oh, number 5 is referring to total rubric points. And then it goes through by the criterion title, which is required. The description of the criterion is optional. And then the level titles, the level descriptions, and building through. So we'll look at what that looks like. To create a new rubric, you start at the classwork page. So if you are playing along on your own device right now, you can open up your Google Classroom and you can, or if you have a practice classroom, I like to make a practice, well, all of my classrooms are practice classrooms, but you can create as many classrooms as you want. So if I were you and you're playing around with this stuff, I would just build a fake class and maybe invite some of my colleagues as students, and then you could try and build assignment rubrics, and it's not going to mess anything up. Plus, if you design it wonderfully, then you can just use it in an actual class. So to create a new rubric, you go to your classwork page, new assignment. This is what your assignment builder box looks like. Once you add a title, down below in the bottom right, that's where you get your option to click +sign rubric and then create rubric. The step-by-step directions to do that are here. I will show you what it looks like. And then here's more info from the Help Center. This is the interface for building a rubric. Now, when I built mine, I didn't start from scratch. I had a rubric that I was referencing, shared by Caitlin Tucker, and I copied and pasted the criterion titles, the descriptions, the points, the levels. I copied and pasted all of that in. Is it tedious? Yes, it's tedious work, but once you have it done, you can use that rubric again and again and again throughout Classroom. So this is what the interface looks like. Okay, so let's go do that. So I'm going to go to my classwork page, create assignment. I have to give it a title. Just really kind of boring. And now words. Once I start kind of writing out the instructions, you can see my rubric button comes to life. So I can say rubric, create rubric. And here is where my narrative writing essay building platform comes into play. So each of those spaces I can just click and type into, and you can decide how to use scoring, sort the order of points by descending or ascending. let's just go through kind of one of these things. Now, on a personal philosophical level, I don't love rubrics, especially when scoring is involved, just because the mathematics doesn't work out. But if you are using it for learning and for helping kids kind of measure what they've done against an ideal, I think they're great. I love single point rubrics, and really you could build a single point rubric in here as well if you needed to. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4 points are required. Level title, you can go through. So we're doing, I don't know, description. Let me get, I should have that. Here we go. Let's just do 3, 2, 1 actually. All right, so one does not, so this would be appropriately sequenced. That's, I'm just making up words from something. Does not recount, oops, in the story would be the lowest. Ooh, I'm doing highest. I'm actually going to go 3, 2, 1. There are little triple dots when you see something, and those are your editing tools. So I wanted to get rid of that level. So all I had to do was that's. And such. Okay, so that would be sequenced events in the narrative writing. Add a criterion. Now I'm going on to the next. Now you can have different levels for, oops, I didn't press 15. For the different criteria. So if you only have like a 1 or a 2, like they did it or they didn't do it, you can do that as well, which is helpful. So you can see I'm just going through. Now, I would not type this by hand. I'm sure you already have them on hand and you could just copy and paste. I'll show you the one I did copy paste earlier. I'm just going to do one more so you can see what it looks like. Supplies one detail about what happened in the story. And nice that spell check's built in. Does not supply any details about what happened in the story. I wonder why that's my spelling. Okay, so here we have this. I can delete it if I don't want to do it. It's kind of totaling up my master points based on what I have entered into the rubric. I'm going to click save. If you made any errors or omitted something, it will warn you at that point. And so now that it's finished, I can click on it. If I need to, this is what it looks like, okay? From this space, if you're happy with how it looks, you can go into the triple dots and you can make more changes to it, you can delete it, or you can export it to sheets. And I'm going to say something about that in a minute, because when I read that you could import your own rubrics into Classroom, I thought that is awesome because teachers already have rubrics designed in all sorts of spaces. But the caveat is you cannot import rubrics from all different platforms. Like if you have something in Word or even in a Google Sheet or in a Google Doc, they're not going to be imported cleanly. The way that you can import a rubric you already created is to first build it in Classroom and then export it to Sheets. So you're saying, Lynn, why would I want to do that? Well, because right now, the only way to reuse a rubric is to first build it in Classroom, export it to Sheets. It gets saved in your Classroom folder in Google Drive. Sorry about my mouse. It's like, it just does what it wants. In a folder called Rubric Exports. Now, this is helpful if you are part of a team of teachers and you all use common rubrics for writing, for project-based learning, for math work, because one of you can build it and then share it with the others. And you can kind of divide and conquer that task, as I'm sure you would. So you would build the rubric just like I showed you in Google Classroom, and then export it to Sheets. It will get saved in a classroom folder called Rubric Exports, and you can then share that with your peers so they can import it into their Google Classroom. So again, people have been trying to design their own rubrics in a blank sheet and upload it, and they're not having success. And it does warn you, it does say, do not make edits to this sheet once you've exported it. I exported one yesterday so I could see what it kind of looks like. Here is my new folder inside my classroom folder. It's called Rubric Exports. And this is what it looks like. And so people think, oh, well, if I just build it like this, I can bring it in. You can try it. I'm not going to say it's not going to work, but I'm saying that it is right here, line 1, it is recommended that you do not edit rubrics in spreadsheet format because there's just some quirks with the import process, okay? So that's the rubric creation, import, export. I sound like Seinfeld, importer, exporter. Options there, okay? Now, how do students see the rubrics? Well, when they are completing an assignment, they can view the rubric right in the assignment details. They can see how many points, they can drop down these arrows, and they can see the criteria that they're working towards. And so everything is right there for them in that space. And when you are grading as the teacher, you can see the rubric on the right-hand side. It will show for you in Google Docs. It will not show for you in any other platform, unfortunately. Right now, rubrics work only with Google Docs. They don't work in slides, like they won't appear in slides. They appear in the sidebar of Docs. And all you have to do is click on the little boxes. If you need to see the criteria levels, again, you can pop that down and you can read the descriptors. But when you pop the boxes, it will auto-populate the points, and then it will automatically create a grade that you can submit to the student. Don't forget to return to the student. So that's all about rubrics. Now, another thing that they added in recent times is this idea of originality reports. And originality reports are, it's a tool to allow students and you to compare text that they've written in Google Docs to text that's available on the web. I'm not going to call it a plagiarism checker because I don't believe in kind of approaching it that way. I feel like we can use it as a learning tool, and we should really only use it if you are concerned that a student hasn't quite comprehended the notion of how to write things in their own words and properly cite material. You get a report when a student turns in their Google Doc. Students can run the report 3 times before they turn it in. So on first draft, a student can run an originality report, and it might say, you know what, this giant chunk of your work was found on this website, word for word. So maybe do better. But you can only enable originality reports on 3 assignments per class. So you really have to think about how you want to do it. You can't just turn those on for everything students are turning in. In some instances, this is not at all needed or, you know, something that would be required, but in some maybe higher level writing, thesis writing, things like that, you might want to consider doing that. There is a page on the Google Help Center all about originality reports. I've never turned one on and I've never used it, so I can't say what it looks like, but they have a nice explanation there for you. All right, so we're taking to kind of the last section of this session, which is all about the gradebook. And again, the gradebook in classroom at this point likely does not talk to your gradebook in your student information system. There are possibilities of setting up syncing between Google Classroom and student information systems, and I'm going to talk to you about some of those. That type of decision has to be made on at the district level. Certainly your technology department has to be in that conversation and working with that. And there are companies that have been approaching, places like Power School or eSchool or Genesis. Those companies that run the student information systems know that teachers are using Classroom, and boy, it would be nice if you're using the grading portal to be able to sync those two things. You don't have to use the grading system at all. If your students are used to going to Power School to see their final grades, I would honestly just stick with that, and I would use the feedback options that we already looked at to promote stronger learning through feedback versus assigning a grade. So you have to think about, if you're turning on the gradebook in Classroom, this setting is in your settings. It's at the bottom of settings and under grading. You determine if you want to do an overall grade calculation of total weights or total points, or if you want to have weighted categories. You can name the categories, and if you want to show the overall grade to students or not. Grading is something that you have to set up in a web-based version of Classroom. So if you are using it primarily on an iPad or on your phone, you're going to have to log in to the web on a PC or a Mac or on a Chromebook to get that set up. Okay, so this is all about setting up your grading system, the ins and outs. If you want to know, okay, what does this mean, total points grading? Well, this is when a grade is calculated for you by dividing total points earned over total points possible. What does it mean about weighting in a category? So they give you little examples of how everything is calculated out, which is always fascinating with gradings. Selecting a grading system, it walks you through step by step how to do all of this. And you can also remove categories and grades once you kind of get in there and do all that. So those are decisions you have to make at the district team level. Now, there are ways to get your grades out of, let me see here. I'll go back to that. This is what your gradebook looks like on the Gradebook tab in Classroom. You're going to see all your assignments across the top. You're going to see your students down the left. You can do some sorting in that space. I'm going to pop out and show you my live gradebook. Let me save this as a draft in case I need it for later. All right, here's my grades. So you can see my students just are not completing their work. Here's my last name. So I can sort by first name, last name. I did set up Gradebook to calculate an overall grade by points. So that's what you're seeing here. Now, each time I hover in one of these little spaces, I have some options. This was not a graded assignment, so I can't click in here and add points because it wasn't graded. I can go here and I can do things from this space. Sometimes kids are turning in stuff that really don't require a whole lot of feedback or, like a lengthy grading process. I can just return things from here. And there's even a keyboard shortcut to go down, Control or Command Option R, so I can return that work. I don't even know what that said, but so there are little shortcuts built in here to things. Now, whenever there is a grade, I can go in and I can type 100. If I hit the Enter key, I can just go down and do that really quickly. Sometimes teachers are grading out of 1 point. And if they're grading out of 1 point, just complete or incomplete, you can just go down and do 1, 1, 1, 1. Ooh, that's going to tank their grades. So it's like a helpful little portal of another place that you can go through and just add a bunch of grades and things like that. For the student options, again, I can click here and see the single view of just this student and all of the work either handed in or not handed in from any of these. I can get back to the work option. I can see the work that was handed in. I can view the assignment details, takes me back to the assignment page. So everything's interactive in the gradebook. Here in the settings, again, this is where you will go all the way to the bottom is grading. So this is where you'll set up your grading options that we looked at on the last slide. Now, sometimes people do legitimate grading in Google Classroom. They're using it to communicate with students and parents. So the question becomes, how do I get my grades out of Google Classroom and get them into PowerSchool, for example? Well, there are some downloading options with your gradebook. You have to go into a single assignment to find this option. And that is annoying to me, but that is the way it is. You have to go into a single assignment, look in the top right for this gear wheel, and that is where you can copy all grades in your entire gradebook to Google Sheets or download all grades as a CSV file. And if you're a PowerSchool user, an Infinite Campus user, those student information systems allow you to upload CSV files of grades in certain formats, okay? You can also opt to download just that one assignment grade set as a CSV file. So again, you have to do that through a single assignment. So like I'll go here, this is a single assignment, the writing assignment. Here's that wheel. Here are the copy, download just this assignment, download all the grades in my gradebook as a CSV file. And maybe you just want them in Sheets or Excel or something. It depends on what grade level you teach and what your goals are with grading. Now, there is a handy tool out there that is a Chrome extension, and it is called Grade Transfer. I am not telling you to try this, but I am saying that if you rely heavily on the gradebook process of Google Classroom, and gee, wouldn't it be cool if you could send your grades directly from Classroom to your student information system? You could give that a try. I don't believe it's going to break anything. The reviews are really good for it. It is a Google Chrome extension. I've never used it because I don't have a student information system to send them to, but this is the way that it works. So this is Infinite Campus, which I know a number of our schools are using. There's a little bit of a tutorial there that you could check out. There are a number of platforms that it supports. It can take, this can actually do a lot more than grab data just from Google Classroom. It can grab data from places like Schoology, Aspen, Study Island, Socrative, Alex for math, and it will fill data in Genesis, Infinite Campus, Mastering, and Pearson and Synergy. So right now, nothing for PowerSchool, although it does say PowerSchool there, so who knows. You can try this and see kind of how it works. This, I do always read the reviews. There's 52 reviews, and these are doing really, from the last year, and I scrolled down to the very bottom. This was just a couple months ago. This guy, David, I think is a creator, and he does comment and share things. If you're sick and tired of manually copying grades, you could try that and see how it works for you. Good times. I love innovative people. Okay, and the last thing I want to show you today as a fun little experiment is the Moat extension. And if you've been in my writing feedback session that I did last week, we talked about Moat. Moat is a voice commenting option for Google Docs. It works in Google Slides, Sheets, and it also works in Classroom. So if you want to take advantage of those private comment spaces, Moat is one thing you can check out to make your life a little bit easier and to give that personal touch. I don't know if Joseph is here today. He's my top fan. He's in a lot of my sessions. I don't see him on the list. But Joseph from Reading School District used this the day after our session. And he said he got immediate feedback from his students who said, it was so nice to hear your voice in classroom. It's just like we're there talking to you in person. And that's just like, that's the kind of nice thing you want to hear from your kids. So it works when you add the extension and sign in. You're going to start to see this little mote button in any field where it's allowed. You will have to allow it to use your microphone, and you get 60 seconds to record your comment. They also support an additional set of languages. So if you have voice transcription enabled, you can see the list by clicking on the mote icon in your browser bar. So I'm going to start recording. I love this list of ideas you want to learn about, and I am wondering how I can best support you, period. How do we want to share our learning, question mark. So it does a little thinking. It does a little transcribing, and the students can either read what you wrote or they can listen to it. So this kind of, I paused, so put a period in there. If it made a grammatical error, you can just click edit and you can just like, I love this list of ideas you want to learn about, and I'm wondering how I can best support you. How do we want to share our learning? Okay, so I'm used to voice to text where I actually say the punctuation. And now students can listen to it or they can read it. I love this list of ideas you want to learn about, and ta-da! And there's my comment. So they can read it or they can read the whole thing. If they don't want to listen to me, they don't have to. You'll find out if your students love it or not. So it's there. It's here. If I'm leaving commenting on their work and I click the comment button, here's a little note here. It's in docs, anywhere. It's in sheets, anywhere you're leaving a comment now, as long as the extension is enabled, which again, your extension lives right here. So if you ever want to just disable it, you could just turn it off there from that space. When you right click on there, there's some manage options that you can go into when you're signed in. So try Mote. See if your kids like it. See if the teachers you're working with like it. I think they will. So I am kind of finished with my explorations of rubrics and gradebook, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have. This is a reminder that we're offering Act 48 credit for any of the sessions you attend. Feel free to, I have to always make sure that this session is on the list because that is where I forget to do things. bit.ly/cc virtual feedback. And I'm happy to help you with any questions you have now, or if you want to see anything else demoed, I'm happy to do that. And thanks for coming today. We appreciate all of your attendance and all of your feedback that you're providing. And we can't wait to see you at the next session. So don't forget, here's the link to our slides for today, bit.ly/gclass, May 6th. And oh, yep, it's not on here. Oh yeah, it is. Woohoo, I did it. And we're happy to help you out in any way. I'm going to stop the recording. So have a beautiful rest of the day if we don't chat later.